26 years after the men's team won the 2000s CONCACAF Gold Cup in Los Angeles, another historic day yesterday as Les Rouges advanced and won their first ever knockout match, the FIFA Men's World Cup from LA. They're off to Texas. In fact, I think they're already there, and we'll be talking plenty about what is to come on today's episode of Bet365 for the win. It's a beautiful home for the beautiful game. Amy Walsh, Oliver Platt, and Adam Jenkins here with you today. Well, there's so much to get into today, and I feel a little bit like Jesse Marsch is kind of loving the fact that he's leading the show once again, at least in a certain way, because after the game, we were starting to talk about what's next. And of course, this massive result for Canada. And then Amy, Jesse Marsch had to say free hit to describe what was to come. Playing with house money is another term that we're hearing a lot of as well. Look, it's narrative telling, it's storytelling. We do a lot of it in these chairs and on these microphones, but I'm wondering if this is something the coach is saying to the media to try to diffuse or distract, or if this is a mentality that Canada has, and if they have it, is that the right approach?
Yeah, I don't even understand really free hit, house money. I'm not a gambler. What do these terms even mean? And I don't think the players care either. Like, I'll get back to answering your question in a second, but Jesse Marsch is a highly emotional guy. I also believe him to be authentic, even though he can be performative. But I think he does that so that the guys on the pitch look to him, see him riding the highest of highs, the lowest of lows, while they attempt to ride the ebbs and flows of the match. And there's a little bit of kind of consistency there. There's stability because they know that he's going off, but the players on the pitch, like your Stefan Eustáquio, like your Moise Bambita, your Derek Cornelius, and your Jonathan Davids, those guys are steady. I don't really think they're paying attention to what verbiage or definitions Jesse Marsch is throwing to the media, and the media will take it and run with it. I think it's a pretty kind of determined routine at this point. But Jesse Marsch also said that can we get stronger as the tournament goes on, as the opponents get tougher and tougher, as the moments get bigger and bigger. So internally, he's preparing his team to face the likes of the Dutch or the Moroccans, who are two heavyweights in world football. And Canada, once again, get to be the best at being the underdog. So I think that's the most important thing on the inside, and that these players know that even if they're not favored, this is absolutely a winnable match, however you define it.
Yeah, I never took this comment as like, you know, we're just going to kind of show up and have a good time and be happy to be there and you know, not play with the kind of intensity that you'd expect Canada to play with in a World Cup last 16 game. Of course they are. Of course they're going to try and take what is a massive opportunity for this team to go even further in this World Cup, even though they are big underdogs. I just think we've reached the stage where, you know, every team comes into this tournament and I think they know what kind of the minimum expectation is. You know, what stage do you have to reach? What do you have to accomplish to be able to go home and not be labeled a failure? And Canada has reached that now. They've got to the last 16. They've got through the last 32, won that knockout game that you'd expect them to win against South Africa. And now I think that lifts kind of the fear of failure off of their shoulders a little bit. And you won't be able to say the same for the Netherlands or for Morocco, whoever comes through that game, because they're going to have much bigger expectations in terms of what they want to accomplish at this tournament. So that's what I took from free hit, house money, whatever you want to say. It's not Canada not absolutely trying to make the most of this moment. It's just playing with a bit less pressure on their shoulders in the opposition and being able to play spoiler, I think, here to a certain extent.
Okay, Amy, Ollie, with that addressed, let's take a look at what's to come for Canada. There have been two knockout matches played today. On the other side of the bracket, Brazil trailing Japan, coming back to win 2-1 in Houston. And about 30 minutes ago, the upset of all upsets. Not many would have had this one predicted. Paraguay defeating Germany. We will have that later on in the program. We'll stay with Canada for now and the idea of the Dutch and the Moroccans, who we will see play about an hour from now in Monterrey. The story, the hero, Oliver Platt, was Stefan Eustáquio. Of course, he scores the goal. He's been captaining Canada while Alphonso Davies has been absent from the team. But this is football. There's 11 players on the pitch, the substitutions as well. There are always unsung heroes, or the guys who aren't getting the spotlight. As we reflect on this program's biggest ever win at the World Cup, who are some of those unsung heroes in your eyes?
Well, how about Moise Bombito? You know, I think maybe unsung on the day because we know South Africa didn't offer a great deal going forwards, and it wasn't the biggest test for Canada defensively, but they passed the test, and that had to be a real doubt going into this game, given that Moise Bombito, his last 2 starts professionally were against Uzbekistan before the World Cup, which was a disaster that made it look like he wouldn't be able to play at this World Cup at all. And then before that, October 5th of last year, when he suffered the injury that's kept him out for a number of months leading into this tournament. So just for him to get through 60 minutes, to look pretty comfortable doing it, to not have any really kind of scary moments defensively or in terms of his health and his physical presence, I thought that was a big accomplishment and really important for Canada that they can kind of have him pass the baton at 60 minutes to Luc de Fougerolles and tag team that game to a certain extent, because I think de Fougerolles has taken a bit of a beating in this tournament as a very young player, still kind of adjusting to the professional level as well. So he's been great. Bombito comes in and gets an hour here, 1 shot on target for South Africa that was from like 30 yards out, 0.14 xG. The defenders did an excellent job to keep Canada in a position to win this game late on with the subs.
Amy?
Yeah, for me, I like that shout a lot because I think Moise Bombito and how he's doing in terms of his recovery and his return to 100% fitness is almost like the litmus test for this team as they're growing into the tournament, as you need these important players, especially down the spine, to be solidified and to be cemented in there. And you still have the depth, despite the fact we haven't seen Alfie Jones or really know what his status is, that Moise Bombito can perform and give you an hour, and it's a quality hour. But for me, it was Nico Segur. I was perplexed at the fact that in the Swiss game, that back line, despite the fact that you had a number of players on yellows, that he was not featured more. I mean, he's had the 7 minutes versus Qatar, where everybody was rotated. The team absolutely dominated as they rolled Qatar, who I think were worse than we thought that they were, but they still had to deliver, and they stepped on their throats with the 6-0 win. But in the match yesterday, he was a really important impact player. In 31 minutes, he had 20 touches, he had 2 recoveries, 5 passes in the final third. Remember where he broke into space, or he gave Tani Oluwaseyi the ball into space, where you hadn't really seen this team threaten in behind. And while he's a defensive-minded midfielder, so I think it allowed Eustáquio to get a little bit higher and maybe played a role in him being just near that D for when the cross came in from Schaffelberg. He was able to chest it down brilliantly and score. That was maybe part and parcel the influence of Nico Segur. So despite the defensive mindedness and more as a 6, I thought he was very complimentary, and he was still able to create the chances going forward. So I love him. I think he's got a great IQ. He's got a huge upside for this team, and I was surprised we hadn't seen him more up until this point, but I think he gives Jesse Marsch a headache in terms of his 11 for this next match in the round of 16.
Let's talk about some potential changes then, how Jesse Marsch might like to change things up before they play in Houston. Look, Canada got the results. Canadians who were hoping for that outcome were thrilled. Everyone else who was watching the match, at least if you spoke to, the social media pundits out there, of which there are millions, they had some complaints about the performances on both sides of the field and the way the match itself was actually played. Trevor Noah, God love him, was not thrilled and said they were waiting for the sucker punch, and the sucker punch was delivered. But let's look ahead, Ollie. If they're to tighten things up or play a different style of match, if you even think they need to, unless this was a completely unique situation, where would you potentially like to see Jesse Marsch make those adjustments?
I don't think he needs to make that many, and I don't say that because I think they're playing brilliantly. That this isn't Canada at full force, and that's kind of the bittersweet part of this tournament, is they've got to where we hoped they would get to, but you are hoping that we would have a fully healthy Canada that came into this tournament and really showed the world what this group of players can do. And that's not the World Cup that we've been given, because we just don't have, I think, the players who are at full health and able to do that right now. So I think there's been a certain element of you have to keep it tight. You have to keep games close. Don't concede goals first and foremost. And then what we do have, and certainly over South Africa in this first knockout game, is there's impact players ready to come off the bench, partially because some of them aren't ready to start, right? Like Alphonso Davies and Promise David. And that's been an important feature, I think, for a lot of teams in this tournament. Canada has that. So as much as, yes, like everyone else, I was kind of underwhelmed by the first half, the first kind of 60 minutes and the way Canada played through that period, I think to a certain extent, I'm sure they would have liked to have been a bit better, but to a certain extent, I think it's by design to just play these kind of low event games, stay in it, keep it close, and then try and, hit them with a punch late on when you're able to bring on some of these forward options that Canada has. So I wouldn't change too much, certainly not going into a game now against a much stronger opponent like the Netherlands and Morocco, where the defensive platform is going to be the most important thing for them here.
Okay, Amy, my job is to host. My job is to teach you. So I'm going to bring back your favorite phrase. We as the media are playing with house money because we're asking this question when Canada are going through. We're not playing revisionist history and what ifs, questioning Jesse Marsh, but rather speculating on what might be to come. What changes would you make?
I mean, I alluded to it in talking about the unsung hero and Nico Segur and how impactful he was as a substitute. So I'll go there because I think Saliba was the guy who stepped up in the moment when Kone went down with that leg break, and he delivered instantly. And it was exactly what the team needed. It was in that in-game response. But I thought he had an uneven performance. He wasn't poor. In fact, I think he even got a favorable rating. But we saw the bright spots. We saw the carries. We saw him driving space, the way that he evokes Kone at times. But we also saw the cheap giveaways. And I think with the insertion of Segur, I thought you saw more stability and more ball winning, more control in the middle of the park. And I just want to play contrarian for a second to Ollie's point about Canada maybe rope-a-doping a little bit. I don't see it as that. I see it as Canada maybe just underperforming and not really delivering when they need to. I like your idea better, your theory, Ollie, because it means that they've got it in the tank. They're just kind of holding back a little bit. I'm worried that what we've seen is them trying to be their best and just not delivering on it. And I'm a little bit fearful of that for what it means in the next matchup on this Saturday. But I think this team needs more bite. They need more ruthlessness. They need more clinical edge. So does Ali Ahmed, is he carrying a bit of a knock? I'm not sure, but I think you need to see him. I don't think Tajon Buchanan goes anywhere because I think what he can give you on a good day is something that Jesse Marsh hopes that he does. Maybe we just see a change come for him a little bit sooner. But what Ali Ahmed gives you is a little bit of a hybrid between the direct running of a Liam Miller and like the mazy creative profile of a Marcelo Flores, who we know is not at this team's disposal because of his injury. I think Ali Ahmed, when he's at his best, gives you a little bit of that, but we didn't see him last match. And I was surprised by that. I thought the insertion of an Ahmed would have opened things up, would have unlocked things versus South Africa. But I do see a change coming across that front line. I just don't know who it might be.